I'm going to introduce our first panel, and the panel are going to each make just a brief statement for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to start with some questions and dialogue that we have already that I'm going to ask, and then we're going to open that up. And as Melissa mentioned, if you have questions, you should write them out, and we'll collect that. So great, we welcome everyone here this evening. Go ahead, Ceci.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I was actually going to make a similar statement. When I was asked to put this presentation together, there's just the Chamber of Commerce. We have 1,100 different business members, and all their business perspectives are different. So to bring that down and capsulize it into where are we at with the oil spill and how do we perceive that, I would have to kind of break it down. But interestingly enough, when I was asked to make the presentation, it occurred to me the same thing about perception and the same thing about the foreigners. It's Florida in general, and you can't distinguish the east side of Florida from the west side of Florida. And when somebody says, oh, Florida's devastated by the oil, and I tell them Miami Beach is perfectly fine, it's very difficult to fathom. Just like I'm from Southern Illinois, and all of my relatives coming in from South America assume that I can speak Spanish just because of how I look, right? They also assume that if they're in New York, they can come and have lunch with me in Chicago and still make it back to New York. So the perception of where we are is really something that is very difficult to counter-educate people when it's out there and saying Florida, and they don't understand the difference between Pensacola and Miami Beach. What we're finding is that, lucky enough for us, we haven't been touched by the oil spill, but we do find that our businesses are having to be prepared. Our Board of Governors has taken a really proactive approach, saying, yes, it hasn't reached our shores, but we want to know not only what we're going to do if it does, because we're very, very confident in our city and our county and the EMS system. Prior to my position here at the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, I was the asset manager for the city of Miami Beach, and my responsibility was over the entire beach, which is our biggest asset. We have over 60 beachfront properties that have beach concessions. They are dependent on that for their economy. Our island is dependent on it for our economy. We have, less than 100,000 residents, but we have 4 million tourists that come to Miami Beach every year. Luckily enough, it hasn't impacted us right now, but the Board of Governors and our Advocacy Council has taken a very proactive approach to ask and question the Coast Guard, principally, the federal government, and beyond, to find out what can we do is there a choke point? Is there a way to evade the loop from it hitting the loop current? Yes, if it hits our beaches, I know that we're prepared. Cleaning up the beach, quite frankly, is a little bit easier than cleaning up the Everglades and cleaning up some of the other areas. We know that for a fact, but that's still going to negatively impact our businesses and our livelihoods, and that's what we live off of. A lot of our businesses have started to give guarantees, vacation guarantees, about the oil spill, much like they do during the hurricane. What I wanted to find out, and I tried to take some polls, is has it already negatively impacted our economy? I can safely say no. There's a very small percentage, and we don't know if we can directly attribute that to the perception of the oil spill, because the reality is this is hurricane season. And people were not coming here anyway. So it's very hard for us to see if that is a direct outcome, or simply because it's at the time where nobody was coming here anyway. We'll see. If we start getting some of the residual effects, if we start getting some of that, we have to find out how are we going to increase our market, how are we going to deal with the oil if it does come to this end, how quickly can the response be? What can we do as far as some of the byproducts, right? How is it going to affect our water? How is it going to affect our food? I mean, seafood, they're already not serving the seafood that they were serving before. Miami Beach is the Riviera of North America. Without the beach, we're Deerfield, Michigan. We are Kendall. So it is our livelihood. We bring in our gross capital, or gross city product is something like $8 billion. So without the beach, it's going to be a very direct impact. And it trickles down. It's just not the hotels. It's a third party. And a lot of the industries that service all of our businesses on the beach aren't on the beach. The island is not big enough. They're mostly in Dade County. They're in Broward County. They come over the beach. We don't even have a waste management system that actually lives on the beach. They have to come over the beach to service us. So whatever happens to our beach is going to actually trickle down and affect a much larger community. The Chamber of Commerce, who I'm lucky enough to work for, our businesses, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce is almost 90 years old. It's a very, very long and old institution. However, they're very proactive and dynamic business people who are not only interested in their bottom line, but they're interested in their community because they live and work there. Their kids go to school there. So it's also the big picture. Of course, I think that without our livelihood, we will be in a very similar situation that Pensacola is. And our board has been very closely communicating with the Pensacola Chamber to say, what have you learned? And if we're ever in that situation, what can we do? So that's my perspective that I can give you. I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to dialogue.
And Ceci, I just want to add one thing, is we held a similar event last evening at St. Petersburg College, and we had on the panel the COO of the Tradewinds Resort on St. Pete Beach, who is the current head of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, Keith Overton and D.T. Minnick from Visit St. Pete Clearwater, and their business is down about 30%, and they're suffering from the same misperception about the geography, because they think what's going on in Pensacola is what's happening in Tampa Bay, and our beaches, because that's where I live, are perfectly clear and beautiful. So that's a problem statewide, especially with international tourism, because people don't really make a connection.
We've luckily had no cancellations on groups or conventions so far, but we do get the daily phone calls about what's the beach. On our website and on the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau website is the beach cam. And we point people to the beach cam so they can see it with their own eyes, that the beach is clean and there's no error. But those are the kind of things that we have to implement because that's the impact that we're hearing. It's a counter-marketing effort, and it's a great deal of labor-intensive work for all of us, but those are the different lengths to which we have to go.
And then before we go to Samantha, the one thing I'll say is I still believe, unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know.
So we're still sitting.
And to say that nothing is going to happen, I think is unrealistic.
Well, that's unrealistic, and we
Something's
don't
gonna
know that. Samantha.